We're not school children.
A rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience. We need to bring
I promise we're going to get to everyone if we play within the rules.
Agenda is a hoax.
It's ridiculous.
The climate change.
I've had it.
Hold on.
I've had enough.
Going back and forth being childish is not helpful to the American people.
Can I speak on behalf
Governor
of the American
DeSantis,
people
really
here?
quickly. Governor DeSantis.
We don't have an identity crisis with that.
So let me just finish addressing that slogan because I don't know what that slogan means. We need to shut down the administrative state.
Well, so listen. The more time we spend doing this, the less time they can talk about issues you want to talk about.
Behavior and illegal behavior, Chris, and you as a prosecutor should know better.
Yeah, no more important duty. So answer the question.
I'm going to get to a lot more time.
Or Kensington. I think that we have to put it
Hold on.
Do you not have any idea what Vladimir Putin's aims are?
Non-neocon on this stage will keep us out of war.
Mr. Vice President, we can't hear.
But the fact of the matter, Boeing came off of it, but you've been pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week.
Speaking of which, images from earlier this month, Governor Hutchinson.
Hello again, YouTube family. Thanks for those of you who will join me on this episode. This video is regarding the first Republican presidential debate. I know that happened a few weeks ago, and it's taken me this long to put together some clips to talk about and to really assess the debate, which, in honesty, we didn't learn much from this debate. But thanks to those of you who are tuning into this video, drop a like, please subscribe if you've not subscribed to the channel already. Thanks for those who are helping us grow. And I say us, but it's just me. And let's jump into this. So we had the first Republican presidential debate a few weeks ago. In this video, I'm releasing it literally 2 days prior to the next debate, debate number 2, which will include basically the same people. I doubt Asa Hutchinson or Doug Burgum will make it to the stage for debate 2. We'll just have to see if they make it, hit the hallmarks, the milestones needed to reach that debate stage. But I would expect 6 instead of 8. In this debate, there were 8 people. There could have been 9 people. But Trump decided to abstain from the debates, and instead he did counter-programming by doing an interview on Twitter with Tucker Carlson, who has been recently this year fired from Fox News. He responded by going out and starting a channel on Twitter. And since that happened, you had the brain-dead owner of Twitter, Elon Musk, change the algorithm to where you can't really tell how many people are actually viewing the content. He changed the algorithm to where it shows views as anyone whose page the video showed up on. So if you're scrolling through Twitter, X Twitter, if you're scrolling through X Twitter and you pass the Tucker Carlson video, even though you just passed it by, it's going to show up as potentially a view with the way the algorithm is counting it now, and that's to try and obscure everything and make it where people can't say, oh, he's not getting many views compared to what he got on Fox News or whatever. I mean, and I'm assuming his viewership is way down from what Tucker Carlson's used to. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to hide the numbers. Let's face it. If they're hiding the numbers, that means the numbers aren't good. If the numbers were particularly great, they wouldn't hide them. But Trump chose for the first debate to do that counter-programming. For this debate, Trump has also said he was going to skip this debate, and instead he's going to go to talk to striking workers. We right now have the United Auto Workers Union that are on strike, and Trump's decided to go speak to them. I don't know if he's going to be outside. I would be surprised to see Donald Trump join striking workers on the picket line and talk to them individually. I would assume he's going to try and gather some people together nearby in some sort of auditorium and give a speech from well beyond arm's length, because let's face it, Donald Trump doesn't want to be arm's length from us peasants ever, if he can avoid it. But Donald Trump is again going to try and do something to counter-program against the debate, because instead of debating accomplishments, instead of debating ideas and legislation or whatever with people on stage, Donald Trump would rather just do something else and try and get more viewers, more people viewing what he's doing than what people are viewing the debate. And with that said, let's talk about this debate. So you had the 8 candidates. You had Asa Hutchinson and Doug Burgum. Hutchinson, the former Arkansas governor, Doug Burgum, currently the governor of North Dakota. Both of these guys have a near zero chance of becoming the Republican nominee. Most of the people on the stage have a very minuscule chance of becoming the Republican nominee for president. Let's face it, Donald Trump has a massive lead in the primary and has kept that massive lead despite everything, including the indictments he's facing. Then you have Tim Scott. He's one of the 2 current sitting senators from South Carolina, and he also is not going to become the Republican Party's nominee. Let's face it, the Republican Party is not going to nominate a black man. I don't care how Republican you are. The current Republican Party will not nominate a black dude to be their nominee for president. Not going to happen. So that leaves us with Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, and Chris Christie, the ones who only have a slight chance of making it anywhere in the debate. And Chris Christie, I believe, his odds are extremely low as well, just because Chris Christie has been, from the outset in this campaign, attacking Donald Trump for his criminality, for his horrible rhetoric, for his presidency where he effectively accomplished nothing. He built 50 miles of wall that will do nothing. He gave massive tax cuts to corporations and the wealthy, which does nothing for the average common working American. Chris Christie has chosen to attack Donald Trump. And if you watch this debate, as you saw, when you attack Donald Trump, Republican voters boo you prolifically. And Chris Christie was the target of multiple boos during the debate because he told the truth about Donald Trump and how horrible he was as president, how criminal he was and the way he acts. But with that said, let's watch the first video. And this is a video, and I titled this video No Spine. And this was asking the Republican candidates, if Donald Trump was convicted on the crimes that he has been indicted on, would you still support him as president if he was the nominee from the Republican Party? So if he was convicted in one or more of these cases, criminal cases, but he won the Republican primary, would you still support him in the general election? And this is telling because I've said it multiple times over and over, I'm sure I'll say it again, Republicans generally are spineless, they're weak, they're scared, and that's one of the attributes that makes them Republicans, is the weakness and the fear. But here we see that on full display.
Support the eventual Republican nominee. If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
So there you had the display of the weakness, which was being asked about if Donald Trump is the candidate. Will you support him? And you saw as the candidates, Vivek Ramaswamy, Vivek rhymes with cake, decided that he was going to be the Trump kiss-up in this primary debate. And so his hand shot straight up. And then as the candidates looked around, once a hand went up, another hand went up, then another hand went up, and slowly everybody except Asa Hutchinson's hands went up. Even former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie put his hand up half-heartedly, then was trying to figure out what position he needed to stake out. And that's really crucial as a politician. You have to decide what path you're going to make for yourself. And Chris Christie had decided that he was going to take that path of criticizing Donald Trump. Then here he was asked this question, which is an interesting question because the Republican Party, one of the requirements that they put in for this debate was you had to sign a document saying you would support the eventual winner of the Republican Party's nomination in the primary, which some of these candidates have an issue with. If Donald Trump gets convicted of being a criminal in any of these 4 cases he's got facing him, they wouldn't want to support him. I mean, they don't want to support him now. Most of the Republican Party doesn't want to support him. And that's one of the interesting things about the Republican Party's debates in this primary that's going on right now, is that the Republican Party has been trying to figure out a way to move away from Donald Trump. And they put a lot of effort behind Ron DeSantis early on. And Ron DeSantis, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was his own decision or if it was people that he has working for him, he was trying to play coy and act like, well, I've not said I'm going to run for president yet. I've not declared anything. And he was doing this for a very long time. While he was denying that he was running, I, here in Las Vegas, was getting mailers about Ron DeSantis. So he knew he was going to get into the primary. He knew he was going to. You don't send out, as governor of Florida, you don't send out propaganda mailers all over the country. Because I'm assuming if I got this stuff, everybody else everywhere else in the country got the same stuff. That it was getting mailed out nationwide, this Ron DeSantis hype mailers that he was sending out. And so he knew he was going to run, but when people asked him about it, he got nervous, and he's a very weird guy. He behaves weird, he looks weird, he acts weird. It's like he does not know how to act human. It's like Ron DeSantis is from some other planet and is just going along trying to figure out how to act human as he maneuvers through his life and politics. And once people started to get to know Ron DeSantis, they realized, I don't like Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is a very dislikable guy. You recently had a book that came out where literally the writer was saying Ron DeSantis and his wife went to dinner at Tucker Carlson's house in Florida with Tucker Carlson and his wife. And Ron DeSantis literally kicked their dog. That's the claim in the book. And the claim is that at dinner, Ron DeSantis kicked the Carlson dog, after which Tucker Carlson's wife told her husband they're not allowed over anymore. I mean, that's sensationalistic sounding, but it's Ron DeSantis, so it's not that hard to believe. You know, you had all this stuff that's come out about Ron DeSantis when he was younger, single, and he would go on dates. He would purposely mispronounce things. And if the girl he was on a date with corrected his pronunciation, he would literally just get up and walk out. Like, you cannot correct me. Literally, that's the story that came out. There was one girl that supposedly he went to a Thai restaurant with, and he kept calling it a Thai restaurant and Thai food. And when the girl corrected him that it's not Thai, it's Thai, he just stood up and walked away. I mean, Ron DeSantis is a really odd person, and he struggles to act normal. I'm assuming that's why he was able to treat migrants as horrible as he did when he coerced them onto a plane, flew them to a northern state in the winter months where they weren't prepared for it. We're talking about migrants who were tired, who were hungry, dehydrated, and were shipped unprepared to a northern state. Luckily, the people there at Martha's Vineyard banded together and got blankets and clothes and food and water and stuff together for the people, found a way to get them sheltered. And nobody was harmed because of the reception they got on the other side. Ron DeSantis didn't give a damn if they were harmed. He could care less if those men, women, or children died. It was all part of an optical stunt he was pulling because Ron DeSantis, that's all he's done. Since he got elected governor of Florida, everything he has done has been for political performance. That's it. Political performance art is all Ron DeSantis does. I don't know if he has a single belief in his entire system, in his entire body, in his brain, in his heart, whatever. I don't know that there's anything he actually feels anything about. I mean, this guy is like a sociopath. I don't know. As far as I know, he's never been evaluated by a professional. He could be a sociopath because of how crazy he acts. So the Republican Party had a lot of push behind Ron DeSantis, hoping he was going to be the guy that would get rid of Donald Trump and allow them to move on as a party with someone else. The Republican Party is terrified that Donald Trump is going to become the nominee and then going to lose in the general election because he is supremely unpopular. Luckily enough for Donald Trump, he's running against Joe Biden, who so far has been rather unpopular. Joe Biden has accomplished some things. There are some good things that Joe Biden has done. I've been very critical of Joe Biden. I am no Joe Biden fan. Joe Biden is way too old, and I don't mean his age. He did not age well. The age is showing on his mental capacity, on his physical capacity. He has aged worse than some other 80-year-olds. Donald Trump's only 2 or 3 years younger than Joe Biden and is not as faded, as bad mentally or physically as Biden has. The problem with Trump is he was never intelligent. He's just been a dummy his whole life because he could, because he was born into extreme wealth. Donald Trump could be a moron his entire life and make it through life. That was the first video clip I have for this video, and that was the no spine. These people in the debate are just looking around at who's going to raise their hand, and as hands go up, more hands go up. Total parroting off one another and totally spineless. That's who you've got right now in the Republican Party to choose from below Trump. And the other thing about this, as I said, everybody in this primary has to choose a path. What is the path I'm going to take? And we'll get to this a little bit later on, but all of these professional politicians on the stage understand one crucial thing that apparently Vivek rhymes with Cake Ramaswamy does not understand. And that is, right now they are in a Republican primary. They have to have positions right now that will appeal to Republican voters, because that's the only people who are going to vote in this primary, Republican voters. They have to have a position right now that will appeal to Republican voters. And if they were to win the nomination, if Nikki Haley or Chris Christie or Ron DeSantis or whoever was to win the nomination, what those professional politicians understand is they have to have a position right now that they can then pivot into the general election with. That is, they can change slightly, pivot slightly from where they're at to try and appeal to a broader audience. Because in the general election, you're going to have a broader audience. And Vivek Ramaswamy has chosen the path that he is going to stick his head so far up Donald Trump's ass that he can warn everybody before Donald Trump farts. Vivek Ramaswamy chose the path of being the complete and total Donald Trump ass kisser and taking extreme positions that he's not going to be able to pivot from. He can't go, if Vivek Ramaswamy, who is not going to be the Republican Party's nominee, hate to break it to you, Vivek, but you are a brown-skinned dude with a funny last name. Republicans aren't going to make you their nominee. There is way too much racism and bigotry and hatred in that party for you to become the nominee. Nikki Haley, beside you on the debate stage, to your left, is a female. I do not see any way, shape, or form that the modern Republican voters, the bulk of them, vote for a female to be their nominee. Not going to happen. As it stands, it doesn't look like anyone's going to overtake Trump, barring something catastrophic happening. In this next video, it's Doug Burgum. He, as I said, is the North Dakota governor, and it's a short video, and I have one video to play of him because he is not going to play any significant role in this primary. He's here temporarily and is going to be gone probably by this debate.
And of course, I'm from a town of 300 people. It's a big deal to make it on this stage with all these folks. But when they were all wishing me well, and I think I took them a little too literally when they said, go to Milwaukee and break a leg.
And that was Doug Burgum. I'm a dude from a small town. I'm happy to be here. It's a delight to be able to make it on this stage. And that's as far as he's going to go. That's why I have that one video. He was on the stage, so I made a video of him. Same thing with Asa Hutchinson. He has a single video because he is not going to play any major role in the Republican primary.
I'm a pro-life governor from a conservative state that have a conservative record in which I lowered taxes in Arkansas as governor. I created a $2 billion surplus that I passed over to my successor, and I made sure that we shrunk the size of government.
And that was Asa Hutchinson. Asa Hutchinson is the former Arkansas governor. He's in his early 70s. He doesn't have a lot of years left to play in politics. I assume he's wanting some other position in politics, however, and that's the only reason I can see him in this primary. He really doesn't have a realistic chance of winning anything, so I'm assuming relevancy is why he is in the primary, and he's hoping to get something out of this, a cabinet position, some other position in politics, some position in right-wing media, something. He's hoping he can shake loose from this, being a part of this primary. And this is Tim Scott, the current sitting senator, one of the two from South Carolina.
Are you bought and paid for?
Absolutely.
Are you bought and paid for?
I'm sorry.
Are you bought and paid
Absolutely.
And that's the only video I've got of Tim Scott, because he also is a dark-skinned guy running in a Republican primary. He's not going to become the nomination. It's not going to happen. Republicans, the modern Republican Party, currently right now, maybe sometime in the future, they will be at a point where they could elect a woman or a black man or an Indian man or a Latino man to be their nominee. It's not going to happen right now. It will not happen right now. But that was humorous to me, the video. That was after Vivek Ramaswamy had made the comment that everybody else on the stage is bought and paid for. And one of the presenters of the debate asked Tim Scott if he was bought and paid for, and Tim Scott said, absolutely. And then the guy had to ask the question again because he's like, that's not the answer you want, I don't think. And he asked the question again, and Tim Scott said, absolutely. No, absolutely not. I'm not bought and paid for. I'm not going to admit it, at least. The truth is, everybody on the stage is or will be bought and paid for. Vivek Ramaswamy right now is funding his own campaign. He got very wealthy in the business world, and he had enough money to fund his own campaign. He literally was paying for donations because you had to have a certain amount of individual donations to make the debate stage. So he and Perry, the wealthy old man that was running in the primary, made the decision to pay people to donate money. You donate $1 to me, I give you $20. How about that? And that's the way he got the individual donation numbers up for Ramaswamy. But the truth is, Ramaswamy is not going to dump in the kind of money needed to run a full general election. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. It could be over $1 billion that ends up getting spent by the Democrat and the Republican in this election cycle for the general election. Vivek Ramaswamy will absolutely expect to get the donation money from the wealthy Republican donors, the corporations, the billionaires. And the same thing was true with Trump. Trump tried to make it out like he was funding his own campaign. In the primary, he could do that because it does not cost that much money. But when Trump got into the general election, when he won the primary, and some of the wealthy Republican donors backed away, not wanting to be associated with Trump and his vile rhetoric, he got mad. He was whining and complaining about the Republican Party not donating enough money to him, not giving him enough money to run. And the truth is, Vivek will take that same bribe money. He's not taking it right now, so he feels comfortable criticizing the people on stage with him. He will take if he was to get the nomination, which he won't, he would take the same bribe money. So it's disingenuous on his part. Vivek likes to talk about truth, but he seems to be a habitual liar. He is one of those people in the business world that's following that motto of always being in the business of selling yourself. He is always trying to sell himself. And Tim Scott, it was humorous. He was bought and paid for, and he said, absolutely. What? Oh, no, absolutely not. No. Well, that's the wrong absolutely I said there. And that was Tim Scott. He probably will be able to make the second debate. I'm not going to guarantee anything, but it's always possible he could make the second debate. We will see how that goes. But he's not going to be the nomination, so it doesn't matter that much. And so let's start into the other candidates who have slightly more of a chance of going somewhere. This is the first Chris Christie video.
Complicated, guys. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Put people back to work by no longer paying them more to stay at home. Reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy.
So Barack Obama, and I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur standing in stage tonight.
Give me a hug just like you did to Obama.
And so that was the Chat GPT comment aimed at Vivek Ramaswamy. There were a lot of candidates on that stage going after Vivek Ramaswamy. Apparently, there were a number of candidates, or at least the campaigns around them, felt that he was a danger, a threat. And so there was a lot of people going after Vivek Ramaswamy, when I'll assume most people would expect him to go after DeSantis since he's the highest polling person on the stage, and that really didn't happen. It may be that the other people on that stage realized how terrified Ron DeSantis is and really laid off of him, feeling like he will sink on his own, which is happening. Ron DeSantis has been just constantly going down in the polls. Chris Christie, an underperformance from him on this debate, because he typically performs pretty well. I mean, Chris Christie single-handedly destroyed Marco Rubio's career in 2016 in a debate. My question with him coming into the primary, my whole question of why Chris Christie is here, I talked about it in the last video I did about the Republican primary, and it's whether Chris Christie joined the primary because he really thinks he can win, or whether he was pushed into it to try and be an attack dog on Donald Trump, hoping that Chris Christie somehow is able to snipe Donald Trump and let one of the other corporate-friendly, Republican Party-friendly people become the nominee. Chris Christie's not going to say whether he was goaded into this by the party, whether he did it himself. It's always possible he thinks this is his opportunity. But here's his second video.
And I went to Ukraine because I wanted to see for myself what Vladimir Putin's army was doing to the free Ukrainian people. And let me tell you, I want you all to look around this arena tonight and imagine that every one of these seats was filled. And if every one of them was filled, there would still be 2,500 more children outside to make over 20,000 who have been abducted, stolen, ripped from their mothers and fathers, and brought back to Russia to be programmed to fight their own families. They have gouged out people's eyes, cut off their ears, and shot people in the back of the head, men, and then gone into those homes and raped the daughters and the wives who were left as widows and orphans. This is the Vladimir Putin. This is the Vladimir Putin who Donald Trump called brilliant and a genius. If we don't stand up against this type of autocratic killing in the world, we will be next.
That was Chris Christie addressing the question about helping Ukraine and their war against Russia. And I think Chris Christie there did a really good job of painting a picture. Chris Christie went to Ukraine. He got criticized for going to Ukraine. And he was explaining that if you took everyone that was in this auditorium and then another 20,000 that would be outside, that would equal the number of kids that were abducted by the Russians and turned to have them fight on their own against their own families. You know, he talked about how the Russians would murder the fathers and sons in a family, go into the house, rape the wives and daughters in the family. For me, for someone who cares, that was a powerful moment for Chris Christie to say, I went there and this is what I learned. how horrible the Russians are, the things they're doing to the Ukrainian people. And yes, we need to help funding Ukraine to defend their homeland against the Russian invasion. There are other reasons for that. Nikki Haley honestly did a great job of trying to explain to Ramaswamy why, helping Ukraine against Russia also helps against China in the alliance that those two countries have formed. And this is the third and last Chris Christie video.
Just change the channel to MSNBC right now. But I'm not running for president of MSNBC. I am running for president of the United States. We're skating on thin ice, and we cannot set a precedent where the party in power uses police force to indict its political opponents. It is wrong. We have to end the weaponization of justice in this country.
30 seconds, Governor DeSantis.
Let me tell you
I'm sorry. 30 seconds, Governor
You make me laugh because you sit here in an answer. You sit here in an answer right.
Hold on 1 second.
You sit here in an answer.
Go ahead, Governor Christie.
Hold on, Governor Christie.
Hold on.
Well, so listen, the more time we spend doing this, the less time they can talk about issues you want to talk about. So let's just get through this section. Governor Christie.
You sit here talking about how you want to stand up for the rule of law.
Yes.
And law and order. And the fact is that it can't be selective. In your book, you had much different things to say about Donald Trump than you're saying here tonight.
That's not true.
Well, it is very true.
That is not true.
It's very true. I read it,
because
and I know.
There's a difference between bad behavior and illegal behavior, Chris. And you, as a prosecutor, should know better.
Yeah, you know what? I know a lot better.
There's a difference between bad behavior.
And I know a lot better than you do. You've never done it like you've never done anything to try to advance the interests of this government except to put yourself forward as a candidate tonight. And here's the thing. We've stood up for law and order. I did it as U.S. attorney. I did it as governor. And I am not going to bow to anyone when we have a president of the United States who disrespects the Constitution. He said,
your MSNBC contributor.
He said,
these are politicized indictments, Martha, and we have to call out the truth.
Martha, it's important to say that the president said, Donald Trump said, it's okay to suspend the Constitution. Now, the oath you take is to preserve, protect, and defend, not suspend.
And that was talking about, you had Ramaswamy talking about the Biden administration using the Justice Department against his political opponent, and that is literally just trying to downplay the indictments against Donald Trump, where Donald Trump was investigated, now he's been indicted. He was not indicted by the Biden administration. He was indicted by people in the country. If you get summons to jury duty, you could have to go to court and be a juror on a trial. Or you could have to sit on a grand jury. That's just jury duty. This is average Americans performing their jury duty. Donald Trump got indicted by Americans, not by Joe Biden, not by Kamala Harris, not by these independent prosecutors that were doing the investigations. He was indicted by Americans. And this is not weaponization of the Justice Department against Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump doing things that are criminal, being investigated, having those investigations presented to a grand jury, and the grand jury indicts him. Ramaswamy is so full of crap as he constantly talks about truth. It's really annoying. And honestly, in recent polls, people have been saying that Vivek Ramaswamy seems annoying. And he is. He's annoying because he talks about truth and he doesn't seem to know much about truth. And Chris Christie there brought up the point that Vivek Ramaswamy previously had written a book where he ran Donald Trump into the ground for the stuff he did, stuff like juning up January 6 people to go do what they did. And now he's singing a different song. Vivek rhymes with Cake Ramaswamy, tried to claim that no, that's not true. And no, it is true. As Chris Christie said, he read the book. This moment in that debate, it looked like Chris Christie was starting to settle into more of what he would do in a debate, get comfortable, and start just going after other people on the stage that particularly are easy to go after, like Vivek rhymes with cake. But Chris Christie is a former attorney general. He's a former prosecutor. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to this type of stuff. Vivek Ramaswamy is a white-collar swindler who got really rich. That was the final Chris Christie moment. Chris Christie, as I said, I believe he underperformed what a lot of people would expect from him because of past performances in debates. So let's jump right into the Nikki Haley clips. And this is Nikki Haley number 1.
And can't we all agree that we are not going to put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty if she gets an abortion? Let's treat this like a respectful issue that it is and humanize the situation and stop demonizing the situation.
So Nikki Haley there was saying we're not going to put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty if she gets an abortion. She's trying to stake out a position that's more reasonable to a larger audience. The whole abortion thing has really hurt the Republican Party. The Republican Party was hurt because of the dismantling of Roe versus Wade. It showed huge results in the 2022 primary, the midterm, not the primary, but the 2022 midterm. And now she's trying to stake out a position where she wants to say she's pro-life, but we're not going to jail or execute women who get abortions or doctors who perform abortions. She's trying to stake out a more moderate position. As I said, I believe Nikki Haley performed the best in this debate. I believe she's got the biggest bump in polling from the debates. She's climbed a bit. Ron DeSantis got a small bump, less than a percentage point from the debate. And then Vivek Ramaswamy was rising in the polls and then has kind of been backsliding since the debate. I think Ramaswamy may have hit his ceiling and he's starting to go back down. Nikki Haley, on the other hand, decided I'm going to try and stake out a more moderate position. That's a position, as I said earlier, easier to pivot into a general election from. And she, I would have to guess, realizes that she and everybody else on the stage has very low odds of being the Republican Party's nominee because of where Donald Trump is, dozens of percentage points ahead of them all. And so that was her first video. Here's Nikki Haley number 2.
This is exactly why Margaret Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman. First of all, we do care about clean air, clean water. We want to see that taken care of, but there's a right way to do it. And the right way to do it is, first of all, yes, is climate change real? Yes, it is. But if you want to go and really change the environment, then we need to start telling China and India that they have to lower their emissions. That's where our problem is. And these green subsidies that Biden has put in, all he's done is help China because he doesn't understand all these electric vehicles that he's done, what that does. Half of the batteries for electric vehicles are made in China. And so that's not helping the environment. You're putting money in China's pocket. And
so in that clip, she gave her quote from, I believe it was Margaret Thatcher, that if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman. That's a good quote. If you're a woman, you know, that for her to unload that on the debate, it works. It works particularly in this debate. There's a lot of guys talking a lot of crap who haven't done a lot of crap. And so that was a great quote. And this again, she's saying that climate change is real. We have to deal with it. You know, she's taking more of a moderate position on the fact that there is real climate change. And she's taking a Republican position saying the way to deal with it is to make China restrict their polluting. And so she is taking a position there. She's taking a path that she knows she can pivot from. It's a moderate position to say climate change is certainly real. It's a Republican position to say let's put the onus on other countries. So again, it's a smart move on her part. This is Nikki Haley, number 3.
They need to know the difference between right and wrong. They need to know the difference between good and evil. Right. When you look at the situation with Russia and Ukraine, here you have a pro-American country that was invaded by a thug. So when you want to talk about what has been given to Ukraine, less than 3.5% of our defense budget has been given to Ukraine. If you look at the percentages per GDP, 11 of the European countries have given more than the U.S. But what's really important is go back to when China and Russia held hands, shook hands before the Olympics, and named themselves unlimited partners. A win for Russia is a win for China. We have to know that. Ukraine is the first line of defense for us. And the problem that Vivek doesn't understand is he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends. What you do instead is you have the backs of your friends. Ukraine is the front line of defense. Putin has said once Russia takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That's a world war. We're trying to prevent war. Look at what Putin did today. He killed Prigozhin. When I was at the UN, the Russian ambassador suddenly died. This guy is a murderer, and you are choosing a murderer over a pro-American country.
First of all, Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 30 seconds. Mr. DeSantis,
Nikki, I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
I'm not on
but the fact of the matter,
Boeing
came off of it, but you've been pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week, Nikki.
You want to go and defund Israel? You want to
let me address that. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to address each of those right now. This is the false lies of a professional politician. There you have it.
Your watch,
so the reality
make America less safe. You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what? The foreign policy experience.
So that was, I believe, the most pivotal point in this first debate, where Nikki Haley went after, at the end, Vivek Ramaswamy for his lack of experience. And so she's talking about how we've spent less than 3.5% of our GDP, of our defense budget, relative to GDP, on the Ukraine defense. There are 11 European nations relative to GDP who have spent more than we have helping Ukraine. That there are people in Europe pulling their fair share. We've spent a relatively low amount of money in our aid to Ukraine. There's a lot of reasons why we need to aid Ukraine, and that the aid to Ukraine, helping Ukraine fight against Russia, helps us in the end. And she finished it with her point out to Vivek Ramaswamy that he has no foreign policy experience, and it shows. Nikki Haley has been the liaison at the United Nations. She has worked with other countries, and that was, in my view, the biggest, most pivotal point of the first debate. Nikki Haley, to her credit, had that moment, and she was able to basically slap down Ramaswamy, who has no honest response to what she's saying. And he has very radical positions on everything. Like I said, he's chosen a radical path, one that he will not be able to pivot from. If he was to happen to be the Republican nominee, he will just have to take that radical path into the general election. And so this is the fourth and final Nikki Haley clip.
People the truth. The truth is that Biden didn't do this to us. Our Republicans did this to us too. When they passed that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill, they left us with 90 million people on Medicaid, 42 million people on food stamps. No one has told you how to fix it. I'll tell you how to fix it. They need to stop the spending. They need to stop the borrowing. They need to eliminate the earmarks that the Republicans brought back in. And they need to make sure they understand these are taxpayer dollars. It's not their dollars. And while they're all saying this, you have Ron DeSantis, you've got Tim Scott, you've got Mike Pence. They all voted to raise the debt. And Donald Trump added $8 trillion to our debt. And our kids are never going to forgive us for this. And so at the end of the day, you look at the 2024 budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. So you tell me who are the big spenders. I think it's time for an accountant in the White House.
So again, there, Nikki Haley is showing that she is staking out a moderate position. She's pointing out that Republicans are big spenders. $8 trillion added to the national debt in 4 years under Trump. In the 2024 budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks, while Democrats asked for $2.8 billion in earmarks. And she's pointing out who are the big spenders. She's pointing out. And I mean, the thing is, if she was to become president, she would spend big too. That's just what happens in Washington. But she's doing a good job here, optically, as a Republican nominee on the debate stage, pointing out that Republicans are massive spenders. There are things Democrats want to spend money on. There are things Republicans want to spend money on. They both want to spend big on the things they want to spend money on. And so she's making a valid point there that Republicans are big spenders. And again, that is a moderate position, a position she can pivot into a general election from. And so that was Nikki Haley. As I said, I believe she did had the best performance at the debate. She's a female, so I don't believe she will be able to become the Republican nominee for president. I don't believe it can happen for a female in the Republican Party right now. This is Ron DeSantis.
We also cannot succeed when the Congress spends trillions and trillions of dollars. Those rich men north of Richmond have put us in this situation. And finally, we need to lower your gas prices. We're going to open up all energy production. We will be energy dominant again in this country. I showed it could be done in the state of Florida. I pledge to you as your president, we will get the job done, and I will not let you down.
And so that was the first Ron DeSantis clip. This is Ron DeSantis attempting to smile after that prepared speech he gave. It's insane how unable this guy is just to act normal, just to be a natural, normal acting human being. And he can't do it. He's got a team of people around him, smaller now because he's had to fire some of his staff because he's bleeding donors, and he can't do it. So in that video, he was talking about how he would open up all energy production, with over what Biden's doing, and it's all BS. We already have oil companies with literally millions of acres of land available to drill on. They're not drilling on it. Why? Because if they drill on it and increase oil production, when that oil starts actually hitting gas stations, gas prices will go down, oil will be cheaper, and these companies won't make as much money. That's the bottom line. They're not going to do it right now unless the government forces them to, and the government's not going to force them to. Ron DeSantis certainly won't force them to. This is Ron DeSantis number 2.
I know a lady in Florida named Penny. She survived multiple abortion attempts. She was left discarded in a pan. Fortunately, her grandmother saved her and brought her to a different hospital. We're better than what the Democrats are selling. We are not going to allow abortion all the way up till birth.
And so that was when they got to talking about abortion. As I said, the abortion issue has been devastating to the Republican Party because they've staked out a position of we want to ban all abortion in America, and it's not a position that's popular with people in America. And Ron DeSantis went on this spiel about this woman named Penny he knows. There was actually an article in the Miami Herald. They went and dug up, did the research, and figured out who this Penny woman was. And she was born in like 1971, before Roe versus Wade. And she wasn't left in a pan. You had doctors. She was prematurely born. You had doctors and nurses trying to save her life. I honestly assume he doesn't know this Penny woman. Maybe he met her. Maybe he did. She's older than he is. Literally, she's older than Ron DeSantis. Maybe she met him. I really doubt it, though. From my perspective, he's seen the story and altered it to try and make it a damning story against abortion. Which, the truth is, it's not a damning story against abortion. It's a story that ended up beginning tragically and having a happy ending. And it's not a story that, vilifies abortion. So now we'll move into Vivek Ramaswamy. I didn't do much on DeSantis. Like I said, I don't believe he performed that particularly well. He's bleeding donors. You've had donors literally telling Ron DeSantis, you need to fix your face. You've had people quitting his campaign. He's had to lay off staff because he doesn't have the funding because donors left. I don't know that Ron DeSantis will still be in the primary come January when the caucus starts happening in Iowa. By the time people start voting, I don't know that Ron DeSantis will still be here. Unlike Vivek Ramaswamy, I'm sure Ron DeSantis is well off. He comes from a well-off family. He has an Ivy League education, but he's not particularly rich, and he is certainly not going to fund his own campaign. If he ends up being bereft of donors, he's going to have to drop out. These other people on stage with, Doug Burgum, he's wealthy from being a tech millionaire or billionaire, whatever he is. He's got no shot. Vivek Ramaswamy is particularly wealthy. He's funding in the primary right now his own campaign. He's not going to do that in a general election, and nobody else on stage is going to fund their own campaign. They all are going to count on donors. So let's go into Vivek Rhymes with Cake Ramaswamy.
Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago. I have gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies.
So that's an opening Vivek has for a lot of appearances he makes. I've seen him make that same speech multiple times in multiple different places. Who's this funny, skinny guy with a funny last name going on his debate stage with all these people? My parents came from India with nothing. His parents are from the province in India that has the lowest poverty in a country that's rife with poverty. His parents came from a province where the poverty is at the lowest, incomes are at the highest. Literally, the population there has like a 92% rate of being college educated. He comes from his parents come from a wealthy province in India, a country known for its poverty, extreme poverty, and depending on the time of year, sometimes massive amounts of poverty. His parents come from a wealthy area. I can only assume they're from wealthier families. They have the benefit of good educations, college educations, professional jobs. His dad came here to work for General Electric in the 1980s, back when General Electric was the wealthiest company on the planet. His dad was an engineer and patent attorney for General Electric when General Electric was the wealthiest company on the planet, and they stayed the wealthiest company on the planet till the early 2000s. Vivek continues to make this comment, my parents came here with no money, and I say that's BS. His parents came here with money. His parents had enough money apparently to buy a plane ticket. His parents had enough money to do the worksheet, the income worksheet required to immigrate to America to show that they were not going to require social safety net assistance from day one, something that's required by the government. If you try and immigrate here, you have to fill out this form, and it includes money you make, income. It also includes wealth, money you have. And so his parents were able to fill out that form and immigrate to America. I'm sure his dad's income was quite well with General Electric. His mom was also a psychiatrist, a working professional. She made a lot of money. And so Vivek Ramaswamy, who grew up taking private piano lessons, had a private instructor come to his parents' house to teach him piano when he was a kid. He grew up having a charmed life because his parents were very well off. Period. And they did not come here with no money. I don't buy that one bit. So this is Vivek number 2.
Okay? President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact.
So there, Vivek Ramaswamy undoes his own candidacy in this primary when he says Trump was the best president of the 21st century. This guy was the best president of the 21st century, so I'm going to run against him in a primary to try and make sure he doesn't become president again. That's literally what Vivek is doing. He's running in a primary against the person he says was the best president of the 21st century. He's undermining his own candidacy with that statement. That's just idiocy. And here's Vivek number 3.
Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax. And we have to declare independence for it. And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy.
And that is where he made the comment that he is the only one that's on the stage that is not bought and paid for yet. And he makes the comment that the climate change agenda is a hoax. He is not someone who is going to help us progress forward into the future so our kids, grandkids, great-grandkids can have a sustainable country, a sustainable earth.
Complicated, guys. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Put people back to work by no longer paying them more to stay at home. Reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy. So
that was the fourth clip with Vivek Ramaswamy, where he brought up the drill, frack, embrace nuclear. He will wage war on the administrative state. He's previously commented that by the end of his first year, I believe, he hopes to have 50% of federal employees laid off. The largest employer in America is the federal government. He's wanting to lay off half in his first swath of layoffs. And he said by the end he hopes to have 75% laid off. 75% of federal workers being laid off. That's the beginning of the Hunger Games in America. I mean, like I said, he has chosen to take extreme positions on things, and he's not going to be able to pivot into a general election. He will just have to ride those extreme positions out and try and get people on board in a general election. I don't see that working out very well at all.
do you want a super PAC puppet, or do you want a patriot who speaks the truth?
And there he's saying, do you want a super PAC puppet, or do you want a patriot who speaks the truth? Patriot who speaks the truth wouldn't be too bad. But Vivek rhymes with cake Ramaswamy does not speak the truth. I would honestly say it's very difficult to get the truth out of him. But that was the Vivek clips. Vivek Ramaswamy, as I said, has chosen a radical position. I don't see how he could gain popular support around the country because of his extremely radical positions. We'll have to see how it goes. I mean, he's starting to drop in the polls now. I believe he may have hit his ceiling. There's one more video I have to play, and that is where Asa Hutchinson and Chris Christie are defending Mike Pence's actions on January 6th, where he went ahead and certified the election results, and he did his responsibility. He did his job. I think they both made a good point about that. That's one of the questions that came up, whether Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th. It's kind of a test of sanity for the people on stage.
The issue we as a party have to face. And over a year ago, I said that Donald Trump was morally disqualified from being president again as a result of what happened on January 6th. More people are understanding the importance of that, including conservative legal scholars who says he may be disqualified under the 14th Amendment from being president again as a result of the insurrection. This is something that could disqualify him under our rules and under the Constitution. And so, obviously, I'm not going to support somebody who's been convicted of a serious felony or who is disqualified under our Constitution, and that's consistent with RNC rules, and I hope everybody would agree with me.
We're going to move on. No, we're going to...
Martha, can I answer the question?
Can I get in on that?
Okay, I'd like to answer.
I've already been in on it, Vice President Pence.
All right, I'd like to answer the question you asked and not give a pre-canned speech. Mike Pence stood for the Constitution, and he deserves not grudging credit. He deserves our thanks as Americans for putting his oath of office and the Constitution of the United States before personal, political, and unfair pressure. And the argument that we need to have in this party before we can move on to the issues that Ron talked about is we have to dispense with the person who said that we need to suspend the Constitution to put forward his political career. Mike Pence said no, and he deserves credit for it.
Okay.
And so that was literally Asa Hutchinson and Chris Christie doing one of the easiest lifts possible in answering questions at a presidential debate, which was, yeah, Mike Pence did the right thing. He certified the Electoral College votes. That was his only job that day, and it's a tradition It's not something, he did not have the authority to refuse to certify the votes. And that's, again, them taking the position that of the anti-Trump, the never-Trumper type position. Donald Trump wanted to do the wrong thing. He wanted to ignore the Constitution and have Mike Pence attempt a political coup to keep him, Donald Trump, in power. And Mike Pence refused to do so. And yes, that was good on Mike Pence to do that, to stand up for that, no doubt. I also said I had no other videos, but I do have one more. Mike Pence, I didn't do his video yet, and I put together a video of what you can expect from Mike Pence anytime he shows up anywhere for anything. But this is the Mike Pence clip.
Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I opened up the book and I read the Bible. I raised my right hand. So help me God. To my Heavenly Father. Faith-filled faith that God is not done with America yet. And if we will renew our faith in one another and renew our faith in Him who has ever guided.
And so there you have Mike Pence, and what you're going to get from him nonstop is mentioning God, Jesus, the Bible, God, Jesus, the Bible, this. I read this from the Bible, this, God, Jesus, my Heavenly Father, amen. That's what you're going to get from Mike Pence. He has a particular position staked out. It's a narrow one. Mike Pence, by the way, he was the guy. You have literal Republicans who were walking around the Capitol chanting to hang on January 6th. Mike Pence is not going to become the Republican nominee for president. I would actually absolutely be shocked if he did, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. That's the first debate, and I will do a video on the second debate if it ends up being worthwhile to do. This one was worthwhile to do to explain that they all have to take a position. They have to choose a path, take that path. You know, you have some people that are in the race. I don't know why they're in the race. Hoping to get a cabinet position or something. Chris Christie, I don't know why he's in the race. I don't know if he really thinks he can win with an anti-Trump stance, or if he was being goaded by the Republican Party to go in there and try and take Trump out, which is not going to work if Donald Trump doesn't show up to the debates. And with that, Republicans being polled showed they would prefer for him to show up to debate number 2. He's not going to. In 2 days, we've got another debate. Donald Trump will not be there. He will be, I'm assuming, hoping a lot of media's there to cover him doing whatever he's going to do around the United Auto Workers strike. He's going to try and make it like he cares about workers. We don't, and we know he don't by his own actions, but that's what he's doing to try and counter a program against the second debate. And so with that, you have Donald Trump well ahead. It's hard to see him not being the Republican nominee, but who knows? There are 4 indictments. Donald Trump should be convicted and given prison time for at least some of the 90-plus charges he's facing. They're all severe, I would say, except for the New York one. The New York one is also criminal, but it's all financial. As I've said before, I don't believe he'll face any prison time for financial crimes in New York City. Let's face it, there are so many white-collar criminals in New York City doing crimes all the time. But, and the question is, if one of these people on this stage was able to overtake Donald Trump, if things went however they went, and a large swath of the Republican Party went against Donald Trump, would he not just say that this was rigged, that the primary was rigged? Would he not implode the Republican Party over being pissed that he lost the primary? I mean, the Republicans have a lot to worry about. Whether Donald Trump's unlikableness will hurt them in a general election if he becomes the nominee. If he does not become the nominee, will he implode the party by causing a large swath of Republican voters to turn their backs on the political party? If he does not become the nominee by saying it was rigged, that the Republicans themselves were rigging it, would he start a third party or do an independent run. So there are a lot of things that we will have to figure out by the end of this. I don't see anybody overtaking Donald Trump primaries, but we'll have to see how it plays out. Thanks for joining me. If you made it this far, God bless you. And please drop a like, a subscribe, and by all means, have a good day.